I'm sure everybody has seen the newest Greta Gerwig movie, Barbie, 2023, released last year. I'm not here to really talk about the just fun of the movie, but more so the way it's impacted hyperfemininity and the way that we see this rise of hyperfemininity. As we know, Barbie has historically united girls and women on the foundation of femininity and girlhood throughout the years. The Mattel Toy Company wants everybody to believe that their dolls have been at the forefront of feminist movements through dolls, movies, TV shows, even some Barbie comics. Barbie was found in the homes of many young girls, leading with the message that a girl can do anything if she puts her mind to it. I know, growing up, I had Barbies in my home. My mom actually saved a big box for me when I was a kid and had a bunch of different toys and shoes and everything, and she gave it to me and she's like, you better take good care of it. But when watching the Barbie movies, I never felt necessarily empowered by them. I just really enjoyed the making. And I think, you can't examine the Barbie movies without examining femininity and feminism as a whole. Throughout generations, women have found a collectiveness in their experience of girlhood and their feminine identities through Barbie. And Barbie, Greta Gerwig 2023, is the newest addition to this decades-long feminist movement, and it has united women in a new way. Going back to Barbie and its core feminist ideas, while at a first glance the ideas presented, or the feminist ideas presented in the Barbie movie, are cohesive and appear to get people to consider themselves feminists, scrutinizing and baiting the patriarchy, the narrative ignores the many intersectionalities that productive feminism requires. The story of Barbie is told from a white, cis, heteronormative lens, and all of these characteristics are the characteristics that encapsulate white feminism, and are all issues that white feminism struggle to notice. In the white feminist movement, we too often miss out on discussions of gender, race, sexuality, that consider entanglements of sexism with other forms of oppression. All of these issues are intricately tied to one another. It is ultimately white ignorance that keeps white women complacent to the patriarchy, even if they are so-called feminists. In the essay Feminist Storytelling and the Problem of White Feminism by Amanda Griffin, she discusses the problem of the white feminist narratives and how they're present in different forms of storytelling. She talks about the ethical response to what feminist stories look like, and it's a really interesting essay. You should definitely read it. As we've talked about, Barbie is told from a white, cis, heteronormative lens, quite literally, the definition of white feminism. And Griffin talks about how white feminism incorporates itself into movies from a seemingly innocent and inclusive lens. Seemingly. Key point. She explains that in the beginning, white feminists are wrote as if they are speaking on behalf of all women. This version of feminism was popularized and eventually institutionalized. Then feminism of color enters the scene. Feminists of color rightly point out that white feminists call women usually names only the experiences of white middle-class women. Quote from Griffin. The new Barbie movie, in and of itself, is the tale of a white woman labeled as the stereotype Barbie. They literally say that. The movie follows Barbie's perspective as she realizes the world as she knows it to not be as she seems. When the film first starts out, we see the narrator telling the audience how young girls have always played with dolls, baby dolls, thus forcing them into this role of mother from an early age. In the beginning of the film, we see a young girl, she's playing with the Barbie, right? She's putting the doll to bed, she's sleeping with the doll. And these traditionally feminine roles placed upon young girls are just one of the many ways the patriarchy instills itself into a woman's role from a young age. That was, and this is kind of how the film continues, that was until the introduction of Barbie. Mattel created a doll focused on the success and careers of women rather than the sole role of motherhood, apparently serving as a middle finger to the patriarchy. In the movie, after the giant Barbie appears in front of the little girl, she is seen smashing her old doll against the ground in a fit of rage. Be gone with the typical roles of womanhood. Women are in the breach of something new. Barbie has solved all issues of patriarchy. Has it? However, the film is quick to critique itself. This kind of self-critique makes the audience feel like they're being let in on a joke, almost making the film seem more revolutionary than it really is. While a film can make fun of itself, it is only productive with a bone to back what it's trying to say. As the narrator continues in her opening monologue, she says, "Because Barbie can be anything, women can be anything. Thanks to Barbie, all problems of feminism and equal rights have been solved." At least, that's what the Barbies think. End quote. So soon after, the film introduces our main character, stereotype Barbie. She's a white blonde girl, has no perception of the real world. It is safe to assume that Barbie's character could be drawing a connection to the real world of white feminists. I really do think that's what the parallel the movie is trying to draw in some regards, but it does it so bad, and we're gonna get into that. Circling back to Griffin's discussion of white femininity in the film, she says, "In the progressive story, the problem of white feminism is understood as the main obstacle to feminism itself, becoming a coherent politics capable of representing difference." End quote. We see this play out as stereotype Barbie wakes up, is met with a perfect day, every day, her shower is warm, her food is fresh, she greets all her Barbie friends, and here it's where the film introduces a diverse cast of Barbies. However, the diversity of the cast is left to be questioned. Upon getting dressed, Barbie never actually looks in the mirror, only in the frame. Yes, it is a way of showing confidence, not grounded in the patriarchy. However, it is also important to note that Barbie is the epitome of Western beauty, so hypothetically, she would never need to look in the mirror in the first place. Barbie is obvious in its commentary on patriarchal norms and beginner feminist concept, keyword beginner. However, Greta Gerwig's previous films have done more than comment on patriarchal norms. They have made powerful statements. I think her adaptation of Little Women, oh my god, I love that movie. And in the essay Greta Gerwig's Girlhood trilogy, and Caitlin Benson Allett examines all of Greta Gerwig's films. So Lady Bird, Little Women, and her newest film, Barbie, of course. And all three of these films are made from a female point of view, and they challenge the typical roles of womanhood in the patriarchy. However, I want to focus on her analysis of Little Women and Barbie specifically. Benson Allett first establishes the main differences between the films. She begins by saying, although their approaches to coming of age vary, Lady Bird, Little Women, and Barbie all examine the hurdles young women face in pursuing self-realization. Little Women takes viewers on a non-linear tour through the world of sisters, Meg, Jo, Amy, Beth, and March, as they struggle with diminished material circumstances and restrictive gender roles in Civil War era Massachusetts. The emotional and professional maturation of Jo March organizes the film's narrative structure with flashbacks historicizing her commitment to writing, aversion to marriage, and identification with her siblings. In Barbie, the character is fighting to realize her womanhood is not a girl, but a doll, the stereotype Barbie of Mattel's anatomically impossible product line. End quote. When considering the structure of Little Women, I think specifically of Amy's character, how she does not fit the patriarchy in the same way as her sister Jo, with anger and refusal to participate, but concedes that she must play along with the patriarchy in order to make a success of herself. I really think back to that, kind of really big quote. It's when she goes, "Well, I'm not a poet, I'm just a woman. And as a woman, I have no way to make money, not enough to earn a living and support my family. And even if I had my own money, which I don't, it would belong to my husband the minute we are married. If we had children, they would belong to him, not me." End quote. A parallel can be drawn between Amy's character and the rise and motivations behind hyperfemininity. Although this fits Amy's timeline, present-day women seem to be receding into a similar "let's let a man do it for me" mindset. But instead of literal physical limitations that justified Amy's actions, women nowadays are fed patriarchal roles rebranded as empowering hyperfemininity through social media and movies such as Barbie. Did Barbie in any way purposely advocate for traditional roles of femininity? No. But did it help inspire a movement that coincided with the many other political factors that might play a role in this fawn response? Yes, I think absolutely. However, compared to Little Women, Greta Gerwig's movie Barbie also makes grand political statements about the patriarchy. 7 minutes into the film, we meet a Barbie in a blue suit giving a political speech, and she says, "This makes me emotional and I'm expressing. I have no difficulty holding both logic and feeling at the same time, and it does not diminish my powers, it expands them." Followed by Barbie breaking the fourth wall and giving a wink to the camera, an obvious nod to the women in political power in our current government. This statement is evident in its attempt to make a political statement to the audience. Greta Gerwig fully understood this, thus allowing us to view this movie through a political lens. Barbie is not only trying to tell a story, but it's trying to make a statement. And due to this, one must view Barbie not just as a form of light critical entertainment, but with its political stance in mind. And once you start to view this movie from this new light, the foundations of feminism the movie built itself on fall. The film reveals itself all of its flaws that are still deeply rooted in patriarchy, the very thing it is critiquing. In the article, What Makes a Film Really Feminist, Holly Durr discusses the roots of where measuring feminism in film came from. Of course, we have the Bechdel test. She introduces the idea that it's possible for a character to be a feminist creation without the film itself, in which it appears to be feminist. So what happens when a film sets out to be feminist, such as Greta Gerwig's Barbie, fails? The introduction to Barbie Land presents a flip of the patriarchy, where unlike our society, the Barbies rule, the women rule. Many Barbies win Nobel Prizes while the Kens work demeaning jobs. Even Blonde Ken works a rather demeaning job called beach, where the job is quite literally Ken standing on the beach. However, before the inciting incident even happens, the film sets a precedent for how the Kens are treated in Barbie Land. Historically, women's place in the patriarchy is subservient to men. In Barbie Land, we see Kens are subservient to the Barbies. However, the Kens are only mostly subservient. They still portray the forced role of masculinity found in the patriarchy. The Kens' primary purpose in Barbie Land is to capture the attention of a Barbie, and the Kens are often in competition with each other, similar to the societally masculine qualities we experience. Even in the flipped patriarchy, the Kens never served a sex object kind of role. The Barbies never demeaned the Kens to this extent. They still had their own place to stay, and they were never seen cooking or being an object to stand beside the Barbies and look pretty, which in the flipped patriarchy we get at the end, the Barbies are seen doing. And these roles are a perfect example of how a film meant to challenge the stereotypes of patriarchy still falls victims to some of its misguiding assumptions. And the parallel to the real world, when women use their oppression to their advantage, men ultimately never realize that it's their fault, and neither did the Kens in Barbie. The Kens never apologized for the disruption of Barbie Land. And with the film still following patriarchal norms, it allows for toxic ideas of femininity to rise in its audience. Okay, so right after the Barbie movie, there was an extreme rise of hyperfemininity. Trends of bows, pink, and frills resurfaced in an uproar. I know I've participated in the bow trend. I love it. And I love pink, but I've always loved bows and pink, right? Women online are making videos about what they are doing to reclaim their femininity, which is a good thing in theory, and getting back in touch with womanhood and how it's helped them regain their power. Many women stated that Barbie helped them see another side to womanhood, helped them with their own confidence as a woman, and helped them appreciate the female relationships in their life. However, confidence in womanhood and falling prey to white supremacist speech walks a very fine line, especially when integrating topics such as the divine feminine, which we also saw to be kind of rising, especially with online media for sure, which is founded on the beliefs of white goodness. Although there may be obvious links in how hyperfemininity bleeds into these neo-Nazi and white supremacy spaces, I think it's nuanced not to discuss the original motivations behind where this fawn response may be coming from. Many women have expressed their newfound desire to be taken care of by a man, be his housewife, and to wish to never work again. However, do women truly want to be taken care of by a man, or do they wish to escape the financial and political stress of late-stage capitalism? Perhaps women aren't only running back to this caregiver role due to a true desire, but also as a result of late-stage capitalism. When women want a sense of comfort and unfortunately, in seeking this, they have fallen into the teeth of a highly patriarchal and white supremacist ideologies. However, it's important to note that it's not all hyperfemininity brings. It's only what it breeds when taken too far. Feminism is feminist in allowing women the right to experience everything, even the hyperfeminine. And I want to make that very clear. Hyperfemininity is not a bad thing. And there's absolutely no shame in being hyperfeminine. There's even power in it, I would argue. My other critique of hyperfemininity begins when women don't learn to decenter men while reclaiming their femininity. Because patriarchy and men are so deeply rooted in our society, it takes a lot of inner work to decenter the male view from a woman's life completely. The lack of questioning is why lesbians are seen as such a threat to the patriarchy, because to be a lesbian, one does not need men. There is still nothing inherently wrong with women getting in touch with traditional femininity. Still, without doing the proper work, women can easily fall victim to the very thing they are reclaiming. A phrase often used to describe women getting back in touch with their femininity is called the divine feminine. The divine feminine is often rooted in spirituality. Still, many non-spiritual people have begun to use the word and can often be found in far-right spaces. To imply a divine feminine is to imply a divine masculine, and that is where things get tricky. The divine feminine implies that there are characteristics that naturally align with women and characteristics that naturally align with men. The traits aligned with femininity are often described as intuitive, patient, and creative. The traits aligned with masculinity are strength, logic, and protection. The rise of hyperfemininity is rooted in the concept that women have been pushed into the naturally masculine roles for far too long, especially with the recent rise of girl boss. Hyperfeminism calls for women to get back in touch with their feminine side. But what happens when people assign gender to the feminine and masculine? Instead of simply feminine traits of empathy, diligence, and kindness, they now belong to women. And instead of merely masculine traits of strength, logic, and power, they now belong to men. It is all too similar to the patriarchy as we know it. This kind of hyperfemininity is a new way of faux feminism, and it could be our downfall. I want to talk about diversity a little bit more, because we can't explore the rise of hyperfemininity without talking about the lack of diversity and even scrutinizing feminism in the Barbie movie without talking about Barbie's lack of diversity. On the surface, they seem to have a pretty diverse cast, but when you dig a little bit deeper, there are a lot of issues of diversity that arise, as it does not really seem to go any further than appearance. And although it has a diverse cast, the film does not explore a more profound meaning of these characters' races and cultures, which we've established is an integral part of the feminist conversation. One of the more prominent examples is when Barbie reaches the real world and she finds two women help to restore her normal self. Gloria, because of Barbie's malfunctions, and Ariana, Gloria's twin daughter, to a Latina woman, but there are never any authentic conversations of racial diversity or intersectionality, despite the comment Ariana makes to the Barbie about being a white savior. The movie only brushes against these topics, almost afraid to go deeper. As we discussed the possibility of Barbie being an allegory for white women realizing their ignorance, it is important of the movie to itself to not explore, it is ignorant of the movie it's to not explore these conversations via something more than just a casual joke. And then one of the worst offenses in the movie is the joke made against the genocide of indigenous people during the film's climax. Once the Kens have taken over Barbie Land, Gloria jokes, "Oh my god, this is like the 1500s with the indigenous people and smallpox. They know defenses against it." This joke does not only not make any sense in the context of this movie, but it is completely insensitive of the movie to say. And on top of that, they had no Indigenous women who were working on the set or even present in the Barbie movie. And the Barbie's history with Indigenous women in general is like so bad. Like, it's cultural appropriation to its core. So it's truly insensitive, and I don't know how you can have a film about feminism without, while making this joke. That is completely crazy to me. The ignorance of race, gender, and sexuality is not the only ignorance carried through this movie, though. In addition to race, the movie ignores the intersectionality of environmentalism and what that means to feminism as a whole. Multiple aspects go into the making of a patriarchy. Women are cogs in a man's machine, and men are cogs in capitalism's machine. Capitalism and industrial practices play one of the most significant roles in overconsumption, contributing to pollution and greenhouse gases. And the Barbie movie, taking the strong political stance it does, has a responsibility to understand the influence it has on its audience. And yes, they understood the impact, but not in a productive way. Just like capitalism infiltrates itself into seemingly every semi-productive conversation, it profits from a good thing, even in the movie Barbie. While Barbie somewhat acted to bring women together, worked to promote overconsumption in all its forms. The song What Was I Made For played in the background of the movie when stereotype Barbie came to the realization she wanted to experience all of human life, was seen shortly after the movie's release, being used in TikTok and Instagram advertisements that present itself as a product that women need. How many products has capitalism made women believe they need in order to feel confident in womanhood? Women are easily influenced into buying these aesthetic trends of hyper-femininity mentioned at the beginning of the essays. Bows, frills, pinks, and hearts, once again, are all lovely, but a woman does not need these items to be considered a woman. However, Barbie's contribution... So how's this relevant to the faux feminist movement? As we discussed, white feminism is ignorant to the intersectionalities of race, gender, sexuality, and the environment. So why would it be aware of how it perpetuates this new form? White feminism is changing from girl boss to quiet life. At the root of both is complacency in a system. We need to understand the audience if we use films as a political narrative device. Furthermore, we need to take action as a collective instead of relying on films that only support mass production, unethical sources of manufacturing, and a feminist movement that ignores intersectionality. Thank you.